I think we'll get started. So yeah, thank you for joining us today. My name is Diego, Farmer Veteran Coalition. We're joining us today is Chloe, also Farmer Veteran Coalition, Joshua Coleman with the Farm Service Agency, and Loretta Hinton with Flower Hill. And we're going over record keeping. Um, yeah, again, this is being recorded. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A or chat, and we'll also have time at the end to answer them. But I'll let Chloe speak for a bit about just our work with Flower Hill and with disaster assistance. So Chloe, I'd like to speak for a bit.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank y'all so much for taking time out of your busy week to join us. I think that this information that Joshua is going to share with us today is going to be so crucial and important for everybody as we're unfortunately going into kind of natural disaster season, and parts of the country have kind of already started being hit with that. So I think this is going to be just great information for everybody to know. Um, so I'm Kloey Painter, and I work for Farmer Veteran Coalition. I'm uh, been here since September, and so I'm still kind of on the newer side, but I'm getting a little bit more seasoned, and this is our second webinar. Um, I'm a veteran service provider, and so I get to work with our veterans every day, which is just such an awesome job. So what we do with Flower Hill is basically we're doing a huge outreach. We're trying to get information out there to help landowners, farmers, ranchers know about programs that are offered and provided to them, because so many people just simply do not know. So our goal is, whether we're at conferences or we're doing these webinars, really any way that we can outreach, we're trying to let people know about what's offered to them for when a disaster does strike. They know that they're not alone, and that there are ways that we can help them out and assist them.
Thank you for that, Chloe. And then with that, I'll let Joshua get started with the presentation, and yeah, we'll get rolling.
Awesome. Thanks, Diego. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Joshua Coleman. I work for USDA Farm Service Agency as a state outreach coordinator located here in Texas. So a big part of our job is making sure that we're engaging with farmers, ranchers, beginning farmers and ranchers, veterans, and other audiences to make sure that we're educating everyone about on the programs and services that are available through Farm Service Agency. Our presentation today is going to focus on records and record keeping, a little bit more in relation to how those things impact participation in USDA programs. And so we're going to start off with a little bit of what some of the more common records that we see producers through FSA utilize to come in and participate in some of our programs. Then we're going to touch a little bit on record keeping itself and some important things to keep in mind there, and then how that ties back into our program. So with that, I'll jump in and get started. So for most of you all, you probably hopefully have heard about Farm Service Agency at some point. And so starting off with our agency kind of involves you providing us with records. And so you have to have a farm number to do most of our programs, as well as some of those programs through the Natural Resources Conservation Service, or maybe even a risk management agency. And so when you're getting started with our agency, some of the initial things that we'll ask for will be just some proof of identity documentation, being your driver's license, social security number. And then if you are operating your farm or your ranch as an entity, then we'll need your employer identification number, or your EIN. For the actual farm number itself, which you've probably heard of, the more common thing that we'll ask for is a copy of the deed, just to show who owns that property. If it's property that you lease or that you rent, then we'll also ask for copies of those agreements as well, just to show you have control of the property. And it's also important to note that you don't necessarily need to own property to participate in our programs, just depending on what we're looking at and the type of assistance that's being looked for. And then if you are participating as an entity, then if you're an LLC, we'll ask for articles of incorporation. If you're a trust or an estate, we'll ask for those documents. If you're a partnership, then we'll ask for those governing documents. And so depending on kind of how you operate, depends on what documents that you'll need to provide to FSA. And so from there, once we get all that information squared away, we'll create that farm number for you. We'll give you a map that kind of provides that farm and track number. as well as outline those acreage figures. And so that'll allow you to access those programs through our agency. It'll allow you to vote in our county committee elections, which are a locally elected board of farmers and ranchers that help to administer our farm programs. And then also by giving us an email address, you get signed up for our newsletters as well to know what's going on with our agency. Looking a little bit more at the eligibility side of things, for producers that are participating in our programs, they have to meet payment eligibility requirements. And so from that, a little bit more of records that might be required to meet some of these things. More so the farm operating plan. That is a document that you'll fill out with us at our local office. Will help you with addition to all of these forms. But that operating plan, it does capture information on the land, capital, and equipment that you contribute to your operation, in addition to the management and labor for that. And so there may be documents that you may provide to us showing what those contributions that you make to your farm or ranch are. Our adjusted gross income certification, you're essentially certifying whether you've made more or less than 900,000 over 3 years. And then you have to also be in compliance with highly erodible land and wetland conservation provisions. And so there's also an additional form for that as well. And so generally these will be three of the main forms again that you'll see if you're first coming in to work with FSA. And so with that, I'll dive a little bit into again records and record keeping, kind of some of the things to keep in mind or to look for as they relate to FSA programs. So for records for our program participation, two of the terms that you may hear from your local staff will be verifiable and reliable. And so verifiable just simply means that we're able to verify that information or that we're able to confirm it. And so if you've purchased something from a vendor or a feed store, then it's easy for us to call that person or that business up to verify that you purchased that. Reliable is going to be that it's suitable or it's fit to be relied upon. And so it's something that can be trusted, the information that's there. And so generally, most of the records that we do see end up meeting both of those. But if there are records that we get that may be a little bit questionable, then our county committees, they'll ask for additional information, again, just to make sure that those records are verifiable and that they are also reliable as well. For most of our programs as well, if they do require you to submit records for that program eligibility, we'll require you to keep those records for at least 3 years. So that way, if we come back down the road and we do need to do a spot check or something, that we can request those records from you to substantiate that information. In most cases, we'll already have those records on file from you, but we want to make sure that you don't destroy those records either, just in case we need to ask for those. One of the more important things that does impact quite a few of our programs is crop acreage reporting. And so this is another record. Now, this is actually done with FSA. And so depending on what types of crops you're producing, to maintain program eligibility, whether it be for crop insurance, on some of our other safety net or disaster programs, and maybe even some of our conservation programs, we do require you to file an acreage report timely just so we can keep track of what you're producing and how much of it that you're producing. And so with that, when you are coming in to fill out that acreage report, this is just a list of some of the more common information that we'll ask for. And so definitely the crop, the type of crop that it is that you're producing, as well as its intended use. We'll ask for the number of acres on it, and then we'll also want a map with the approximate boundaries. And so all of these go into creating this acreage report record for your operation. There may be some additional information that might be needed as well. And so if you're doing organic production, we might have a few extra records that are required from that standpoint as well. And so, but again, this would be another record that would be needed if you're doing any of our or most of our disaster programs. Contracts. So for producers, whether they're applying for some of our farm programs or even some of our farm loan programs, they may need to provide a contract for us. And so contracts here, a generally written agreement between the owner of commodity, whether you're doing crops or livestock, and then the other individual setting the specific terms, conditions, and obligations of both parties in that contract. And so generally, we'll look for information of who's involved in a contract, the items that are being provided. So both what the commodity is and also the compensation for it, as well as the authorizing signatures from the applicable parties for that contract. And so again, depending on which program you may need to apply for, will determine if we'll need a copy of the contract from you. And so, but again, this is one of the common records that we see producers provide to us for programs. Inventory records. And so these are generally used to substantiate either your beginning inventory, inventory on the date of a loss that you may have, whether it be due to adverse weather, whether it be due to an animal attack, whether it be due to a disease. And so the inventory on that applicable date, it'll be used in some of our different programs and is used to calculate financial assistance for specific programs as well. And so when you're looking at inventory records, these could include your Calvin records. If you have some of your insurance records or balance sheets, those may be able to suffice in some cases. This could also include vaccination records and pregnancy check records as well. We also know that some producers keep contemporaneous records, which are essentially those records that you kind of just keep in the moment. And so, if something happens out in the field, you might make a quick note of it, and then that would be a contemporaneous record. And so, if you have some of those dated spreadsheets or notebook entries, then in some cases we may be able to accept those as well as an inventory record for your operation. I mentioned leases a little while ago, but for some of our programs that do require leases, we'll have to make sure that we have current leases on file. For producers that commonly come in and work at our office on a yearly basis, we will likely have updated leases on file for them. But I know there are a few of our disaster programs that, if they're not being administered, then some producers may not come into the office just since there may not be anything immediate that they need to sign up for. And so, if you do need to submit a lease agreement, either get a farm number or for program eligibility, then this is just a list of some of the more general information that we're going to look for. So definitely, the name on the lease has to be the name of the person that's requesting benefits, and so that's going to be the first thing. Generally, it will include the dates that the lease is good for or a date range on it, and then also the amount of acreage as well that's involved in that lease agreement. And of course, the authorizing signatures as well will be needed on that lease agreement. We do have an internal form that we can utilize. It's a CCC 855. And so on that form, if you don't have a formal lease agreement, but you may need a lease agreement for program eligibility, then we may be able to utilize that form to get the applicant's signature on it and then the landowner's signature, just so that we can have some verification that operator does have control of the property for their farm or for their ranch. And so, but again, at any time that you do have a change in leases or you update your lease agreements, and you are working actively with the FSA, it's good to just reach out to the office to provide them with that so they already have it on file. Pictures. Pictures are often used as a source of reliable documentation to substantiate deceased livestock, burnt hay bales, flooded grazing lands, even large fish kills and other types of losses. And so generally photos, they will have a date and time stamp. And so most of the time, everybody has a cell phone now. And so the cell phones do contain some metadata that kind of lives in the background that does show when that photo was taken. And so definitely, if you do have any losses, more so with livestock, but even if it's some crop production that you're doing, it's good to take photos of that so that way you do have that documentation. So if you are coming in to sign up for our programs that may require that type of documentation, that you do have it and you're able to provide it to us as well. I mentioned receipts earlier, but again, they may be required to show that purchases have been made in relation to your farm or ranch. And so, again, we may require those. And so, typically, most of the common information that we will see on those will be the date of purchase, the name and contact info for the vendor. If you were purchasing feed, then it's probably going to show the type and the quantity of the feed that you purchased as well as the cost. And then in some cases, it might show the signature of the vendor as well. And so if that vendor doesn't have a license to sell the feed, then we're definitely going to look for a signature on it. But certainly there might be other types of losses that you may have that you may have receipts for. And so if they may be required for that program, or you think that they may be good records to provide which application, and we definitely encourage you to do that when you do reach out to your local office. Just a quick note on some of the other types of supporting documentation and when they might be needed. For programs that require loss eligibility to be met through an adverse loss, norm mortality, or weather, they will need some things to meet that. And so with that, if it's an adverse loss, again, those time stamped photos will generally meet that threshold. But if not, if you have some of those contemporaneous dated written records, we might be able to accept that. Normal mortality, which is essentially a number that we assign to livestock that we would expect you to lose within a given year. And so to show normal mortality type losses, you might be able to provide veterinary treatment records, rendering truck receipts, or again, some of those dated and written records. And then, of course, if it may be a loss that is due to adverse weather, then you might be able to take a screenshot of maybe the Weather Channel or AccuWeather's website or a news article that documented the weather conditions on that day. Or it might be, again, a newspaper clipping from your local paper that kind of details what some of those losses were. Generally, our local offices, if there's a weather-related disaster that occurs locally, they may also be able to go and source some of that information just to verify it. But again, this is just a list of some of the other supporting documentation that might help to substantiate those types of losses. So shifting gears a little bit to record keeping itself. And so this is a little bit more on that contemporaneous record keeping side. And so just kind of keeping kind of a live note taking kind of as things are going on within your operation. When it comes to record keeping, there are different types of softwares or different types of books or ways that you may keep records. For our program purposes, there's not one specific method that we recommend or suggest, but mainly I encourage you to look for a way that works best for your farm, for your ranch, and being able to use whatever is easier for you to utilize. Again, we can't tell you what is the best way for you to keep records, but again, they just generally have to meet that verifiable and reliable threshold for us to be able to meet. And so, hand in hand with good records comes good record keeping. And so, shown here, this is just a sample spreadsheet that you might be able to use to track your cattle records. And so, whether it's going to be your inventory or your production records, this contemporaneous record that's shown here can be used as some supporting documentation for some of those programs that might be acceptable to the county committee if they're reviewing a notice of loss or a program application for you. Similar on this slide here with crop production records. This one here you can use to track, again, where on your farm that crop was produced, how many acres of it, when you harvested, and a little bit of information on how much that you harvested from that portion as well. The next few pages I'm going to show you, these are from the Mississippi Farm, Small Farm Record Keeping book that was developed by Alcorn State University in Mississippi and USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service. And so these show what types of information can be recorded to gather information that are a little bit more specific to the financial aspects of your operation. And so this sheet here kind of lists out farm business paid out expenses. And so it details the type of expenses that have been paid out by category. And so allow you to track a little bit more clearly where your money is going out and what you're spending those things on. On the farm inventory spreadsheet, so this one here can be useful in helping you to track all the equipment that's a part of your operation. And so definitely this can be useful if you may be going to apply for a loan and you do maybe need some records of things that might be used for security or collateral for that loan, then this may help you to kind of keep a running track record of that. Also, if you're working on balance sheets, this is another way to kind of keep up with what inventory you do have within your farm or ranch that might be useful to have information to have down the road. And this here is kind of goes through the farm business income receipt. And so this is kind of a vital part of your operation, knowing what type of funds you have coming in. And so with that, whether you're applying for our programs, a loan program, or even if you're using it for taxes, these are just different things that can be used to kind of make that process a little bit easier so the way you are keeping good records. Um, This here is an updated version of their small farm record keeping book. And so, just briefly, I won't go through the whole thing, but the table of contents here goes through some of the different um, types of records that you can use this record book to keep track of. And so you can also track your crop production in this one. If you're doing fruit production, you can track it here. For cattle production, there are quite a few different ones here for cow production records and replacement records. There's even some for poultry and also goat and swine production as well. This one does go a little bit further in that it also includes a few for non-farm living expenses. And so if you need to track that information, there are some things here, as well as integrated pest management, water management, record keeping, grazing records. And so there are quite a few different things that are covered here within this record book that might be helpful to your operation. And so it's a roughly a 50-page record keeping book. And so there are quite a few different things that are located within this book that might be useful to your operation. But again, if you may have been wondering what might be a good way for you to keep records or maybe unsure, then this might just be a good way just to get started. Just kind of keep up with those things as you work to kind of build a good record keeping system that works for you. And so with that farm record keeping book, um, Alcorn State University, they have offered that if there are any of you all that are on the call today that would like to request a copy, that they are willing to send you all a copy of it. And so to request a copy, you can reach out to Carolyn Banks at Alcorn State University. You can reach her at cbanks@alcorn.edu or by phone at 601-877-6260. And so again, the record keeping book itself and record keeping in general, again, they can play a big role in helping to kind of keep track of the information that, again, will be needed either for USDA program participation or even if it's just you're using it internally, just kind of track the progress of your operation. And so definitely, if you may need a record keeping resource, this might be a good one just to get started with. So just a few more things to just kind of show how those records tie back into our programs. One program here is our non-insured crop disaster assistance program. And so this is generally a risk management tool program that's designed to reduce financial losses for those producers when they have crop losses that are due to natural disasters. And so depending on what type of crop you produce, the deadline to sign up for this program varies throughout the year. But you can reach out to your local office for details on what those deadlines are. But again, looking at records, you have to have an acreage report. So again, coming in, providing information to your local office is required for this program. You have to file a notice of loss. And so when you do have an eligible loss, you reach out, let your office know, they'll work you through that process. But again, there might be some additional documentation that they'll need from you. This program also requires you to submit production records. And so you have to keep track of what your production is. And so again, record keeping comes in essential in this program to being able to meet those provisions. Our emergency assistance for livestock, honeybees, and farm-raised fish program captures quite a few different types of losses, but they can cover certain grazing losses that livestock producers may have. If you're doing honeybee production, then we can cover losses to the colonies, the hive boxes, or even the feed itself under certain eligible losses. If you've had additional costs due to drought for livestock or feed transportation, we might be able to reimburse those as well as water transportation. And so again, with this program, it requires those acreage reports. It may require those inventory records that we talked about and even some receipts if you've had one of those transportation costs or feed losses additionally. And so being able to keep track of that information and keeping up with those records will be vital to applying for our programs. Then the last one I'll mention is going to be the livestock indemnity program. And so this one provides benefits to eligible livestock owners that have had livestock deaths that are in excess of that normal mortality that have been caused by eligible adverse weather, eligible disease, or eligible attacks by covered animals. And so with that, we would ask for, again, those beginning inventory records. We want to know what your inventory was at the beginning of the program year. Acceptable proof of death. A lot of cases, that's going to be photos that you may take. Common example, bad storm comes through, the cows gather under the trees, lightning strikes the tree, kills a few of the cows. And so photos of those dead carcasses would kind of suffice in that scenario. Third party certifications, I won't dive into that because there are a few other restrictions there, but that might be acceptable. And again, receipts, if you sold any of those at a reduced price, then we ask for those receipts as well. Just a couple quick things. The disaster assistance discovery tool, if you do have a disaster type loss, this 5-step tool allows you to answer questions about your operation and the loss that you had and can recommend programs that may assist. This will also touch a little bit on the types of records that we may need. And so this will be a good tool just to kind of keep in mind if you do have one of those disaster losses that you may need guidance on which program may assist. Also, FSA has partnered with Farm Raised to also offer some educational tools and resources to help assist producers. And so it includes both a ELAP decision tool, which is emergency assistance for livestock, honeybees, and farm raised fish program, as well as the livestock indemnity program. And so both of those tools are designed to make the process of understanding and gathering documentation for both of those programs a little bit easier for producers. And so again, both of those are good ways to kind of again get a little bit of head start on the process if you may be applying for either of those programs, and kind of let you know what type of documents that we'll need in and what type of records we'll need to get you signed up for those programs. The last one is going to be the loan assistance tool. And so again, if you may be interested in one of our farm loan programs, this here, you answer a series of questions and it'll suggest the program. With it, it also goes a little bit into what types of documents that we might request from you or what might be needed for your application, depending on what you're maybe seeking assistance with. And so again, this is another great online tool to kind of help you out there. And so just a few important things so I can wrap up right quick. Receipt for service. So when you go into our local offices, whether it be FSA, NRCS, or rural development, if you are requesting a benefit or service, then we are required to provide you with the receipt for service that again gives you a record of what that interaction with the office was. And so with that, in most cases, if we have your email address on file, we'll email you that receipt. But if you'd like to request a printed copy before you leave the office, you can do that as well. But just be sure that you don't leave the office without your receipt. I mentioned our newsletter. So if you don't currently get your local office newsletter, but you want to sign up for it, you can go to farmers.gov/subscribe. There, all of our county offices across the country send out newsletters to their subscribers locally. And so if there are new programs that are coming out, if there are upcoming deadlines or just other reminders that they want to get out, this is a good way just to stay in tune with kind of what's going on locally. Also, they send text alerts as well for some of those key updates that may be action oriented. And so if you do want to sign up to receive text alerts from your local office, you can just text your state abbreviation and your county name without spaces to FSA now. And so with that, I think I got done about 14 minutes at most left. But anyway, this is my contact info here on the screen. And so certainly if y'all do have any questions either about this presentation or about FSA programs in general, feel free to reach out to me. If you want to reach out to your local office with program questions, you can also find their information online at farmers.gov as well. All right, Diego. So I think I'm done at that one.
Thank you for that, Joshua. If we have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A. Well, I'll give you all time to put your questions if you have any. Loretta, do you have anything you'd like to add? Sorry, put you on the spot.
Well, I had wrote questions as he went, and then the next sentence he answered my question. So my question was, I'll just go over one of them briefly. It was going to be for leases, because we in mid-Missouri have a lot of farmers that lease different land for cattle grazing. And we have a lot of them that come in and say, oh, we have an oral lease. He lets me lease it. So that form that Joshua mentioned for the lease, I don't know if I realized there was an actual form, but the CCC 855 that he said that an applicant can use for a lease, that's pretty pretty important in mid-Missouri. Other than that, I've done a lot of lip applications in my FSA career, and the pictures that he named for stamping, because it's got a date stamp on it, and when they print it, it's pretty accurate. Another thing that we used is a lot of them in mid-Missouri have cattle insured, so they would also make their cattle claim. And Joshua can correct me if I'm wrong, but we took, in my years of service, we would take the insurance information because they had the claim and they had the photos and the verifiable adjuster went and looked at the cattle, and we would use a lot of that for a lip claim. Is that still accurate, Joshua?
Yeah, so those insurance records and things, we could utilize those as well. And so definitely if through insurance you've already kind of captured most of those things, that could definitely be used to substantiate that loss. Likely it already included some of that beginning inventory information in it as well. And so generally we would probably be able to accept those.
Okay, cool. And then bank records. That was sometimes the bank records are verifiable, but we have several lip claims in our area. Other than that, I think he covered everything in a nutshell on every possible question I had. But yeah, again, if you meet up with your local FSA office, they can help you, and they can give you more guidance on how to get your farm number, how to start out, and record keeping. I can say as a clerk for FSA for 30 something years, record keeping is important. When they bring you in a list, well, here's all my cows' names. That's hard to make an application on it. So the spreadsheets or, anything like that is something that's running every day instead of just coming in on a back of a ticket with your cows' names. That's pretty hard to make that work. But anyway, I thought it was an excellent overview of everything.
Sure, thanks, Laura. And right quick, I'm just going to show that 855 form for everyone. And so hopefully it's screen share. Yeah, it is. So again, this is just the form here. And so again, you'll just fill out who the operator of the farm is, who the landlord is. Most information, the farm number, the acres lease, all this that, like say the producer, we can help out with this general information. We'll need to know what the terms of that lease agreement are, and if there are some additional details, we'll need that. But again, the leasee, they'll sign, the leaseor, they'll sign, and then they'll return this form back to FSA. Now, this is, as the name here, it's an annual lease certification, and so the form is only good for 1 year at a time. For some producers, that may be okay just to get through that main production cycle for that year or to apply for programs for the year. But certainly, like say, this form can be used in lieu if you don't have a actual written lease agreement. So
Okay, and then we do have a question that showed up in the Q&A.
okay.
So Josh asks, is there a list of what qualifies as a disaster? For example, does the governor have to declare a state of emergency in your area? And is there a minimum number of livestock or minimum acreage or bushels of crops that this covers?
Got you. So with on the disaster piece of it, it doesn't have to, I guess, necessarily be a governor declared or secretarial declared type designation. There are plenty of situations where we may have a let's just say a thunderstorm with some bad hail or wind that comes through and just impacts maybe, a small or half portion of a county. In most situations, you might not see disaster declarations for those types of losses, but there's still producers that had losses in those scenarios. And so in those cases, it's important again if that type of scenario occurs to just reach out to your local FSA office to inquire about which programs are available. Again, they'll kind of know if there's been a storm or something that's kind of maybe impacted producers in the area. Again, but it might not be a declared type disaster designation that's issued. But certainly, it's always important to just if you have those questions or if you might have a loss that you think may or may not be eligible, just reach out to your local office and they can let you know whether it might be an eligible loss or not. On the next question, minimum number of livestock or acreage bushels of crops that the program covers. It depends a little bit on the program. No, there's not really a minimum number that's required. But depending on the size of your operation and I guess the time that it may take you to apply for a program will probably be one of those determinations to make. But generally, there's not a minimum number of livestock or a minimum number of acres that might be required for the programs. With that, when it comes to doing the farm numbers themselves, because here quite so in the life of the last or the current farm bill that we're under, the 2018 farm bill, there's quite a bit of assistance for urban agriculture producers. And so, in terms of issuing farm numbers, we can issue farm numbers down to a tenth of an acre. And so, that's a pretty small backyard type space. And then we can do acreage reporting down. Now we can do it down to a millionth of an acre, which is about 2.5 square inches. And so, so there's not necessarily, again, a minimum acreage or a minimum number of livestock that might be required. But again, looking at the programs and what those loss thresholds may be, might impact what programs you may want to apply for. So,
Thank you for that, Joshua. And we got one more to comment. So Kimberly says, I have a small farm, but it's really diverse. We have bees, cattle, hogs, laying chickens, ducks, seasonal turkeys, as well as offer educational tours, farm stays, and make seasonings and a lot of other stuff, it looks like. She's asking, there's a lot of software options out there available. I know you said there's not one specific that you recommend, but are there any applications that come to mind to help her kind of do better record keeping or more efficient, I guess?
uh,
Because she currently
none.
does it on Excel, which she says.
Right, right. None that come to mind right off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But definitely I do know that there are quite a few that are out there. You can probably do probably just a Google search for farm record keeping. And there'll probably be quite a few different results you'll get. I know that there are quite a few companies as well that offer that record keeping type assistance. And so they may or may not use proprietary softwares and assistance that they provide. But again, there are different things out there that might be available to utilize. But yeah, I would say just do like I said, a quick Google or quick internet search on farm record keeping software and then see what types of things you get. I would say make sure it's a little bit specific to farm record keeping software, because just general record keeping software, it may not allow you to track some of the things that would be a little bit essential with the farm as opposed to just general business record keeping. And so probably just make sure that it's a search specific for farm record keeping software.
All right.
I'd like
And
to throw a
go
comment
ahead.
out there. Just a comment from FSA's point of view. If you have it on spreadsheets, just because I mean they don't need the entire last 5 years, but if you have something current and your spreadsheets are kept up to date, that's really good. Also, that booklet Joshua talked about, small farm record book, that's a really great tool, but you might be duplicating your work for you by doing that. But even the spreadsheets, it would work for FSA's purposes if it shows current and just a running tally. And then also, I was going to say on your honeybees, you can make an acreage report on honeybees as well. Should you have a freeze come in and kill your colony or something like that, honeybee acreage reports are due by the end of January. And I think that's nationwide. I don't know.
Yeah, January 2nd is the
Okay,
deadline.
so
Yeah.
that don't forget, just because you think it's honeybees and they're in a hive, they're not acreage reportable. They are, and there's also an ELAP program that includes honeybees. So you might keep that in mind. That's a good one because the queen bee itself is expensive. And I was just looking at your other. They can, like he said, they can do the acreage reports down to a tenth of an acre. So it's probably still worth doing, especially if it's going to be a disaster application in years to come, or who knows anymore. It seems like months to come. But keep that in mind that your record keeping is good if you've got records. FSA can make it work, but we have a lot of people that come in the office that their records are in their head or the dash of their truck. That's what doesn't work. So your records, if they work for you, that may be enough for FSA as well. I'm just throwing that out there.
No, that was good.
Yeah, thank you for that. And it looks like that's all the questions we have. thank you everyone for joining us. Again, it's being recorded, be uploaded to our YouTube channel within a week or so. I do want to add, we do have a FSA toolkit on our website. I'll put that in the chat right now. It's just a bunch of information about what's available, different kinds of programs, just a lot of information that will help you out with FSA stuff. And then we also upload our webinars as well onto that website. So we'll have them listed there. And for disaster assistance, again, please reach out to us if you need more information or need help filling out applications. We do offer technical assistance, and I'll let Chloe talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so we do have a technical assistance forms, and we those come in. We have that also on our website, and when that comes in, I'm able to look and see exactly what is needed, and we ask for contact information on that. And so we're able to contact you directly via email and phone call. We usually try to do both if we don't hear back from an email within a day or two. And that way we're able to kind of see exactly what you're needing and send you. A lot of the times people need help getting their farm numbers, or they have a question about recently had a question about from somebody who was in Hurricane Helene not too long ago and had some questions about damage on her farm. And so we're just able to reach out and better assist you that way, because we're able to kind of pinpoint what you're needing exactly. So definitely utilize that. There's a multiple of us kind of as a group working on those, and so you'll definitely get an answer and hopefully some really good guidance.
Thank you for that, Chloe. Again, yeah, if you know anyone that needs more information about disaster assistance, please reach out to us. I'll be doing outreach throughout pretty much throughout the whole year. I'll have more information on our newsletter if you're signed up for us. If you're not, please follow us on Facebook. There's a sign up button on our page to do that. But and Josh, I see your comment, so we'll be here so in case you want to stop by. But other than that though, if Joshua or Loretta want to add anything else, I'll go ahead and end this.
Nothing else. Thanks for the opportunity again, and thank you all for your service. And if we can be of assistance, let us know.
Thank you, Joshua, so much.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you all. And again, this will be uploaded in a week or so. So yeah, thank you all for your time, and you all have a good day.